Beyond the surface lies a geography of survival and sacred geometry. These landscapes do not just exist. They endure. Witness the world where nature and history finally reach a state of perfect, terrifying grace. What if the only way to save your family was to live inside a stone chimney for months at a time? Look toward the jagged horizon of the Caucasus Mountains. Here, the landscape is interrupted by hundreds of granite fingers reaching for the sky. Svan Towers, built between the 9th and 12th centuries, each structure functioned as a private fortress for a single family. The Svan people lived in a world of constant threat. From invading armies to devastating avalanches, security was the only currency that mattered. One specific tower stands apart, known as the Tower of Love. Local records and oral history describe a woman who waited there every day for her lover to return from conflict. Even as blood feuds between clans tore the valleys apart, this specific structure remained untouched. The architecture is brutal and functional, with walls up to 1.5 meters or 5 feet thick. There are no doors on the ground floor. Access required a ladder that could be pulled up in seconds, turning the home into an impenetrable cell. Inside, families stored enough grain and water to survive weeks of siege. Today, the towers remain as a testament to a psychology of survival. They are artifacts of a time when a home was a literal castle, and that castle was the only hope for a lineage to continue. The towers dominate the landscape of Upper Svaneti, a region so isolated that it preserved a language and culture nearly lost to the rest of the world. The Colorado River serves as the primary architect of this chasm. Over 6 million years, the water has cut through the massive rock layers of the Colorado Plateau. The resulting canyon stretches 277 miles or 446 kilometers in length. The vertical walls expose nearly 2 billion years of the planet's crust, representing almost half the age of the Earth. The oldest layers at the base are the Vishnu basement rocks. Dark schists and granites formed under extreme pressure deep within the crust. Above these lie successive strata of limestone, sandstone, and shale, each marking the arrival and retreat of ancient seas and deserts. One of the most significant features is the Great Unconformity. This is a geological gap where rock layers representing nearly 1 billion years of history have been completely eroded away, leaving a blank space in the Earth's diary. The vibrant red and orange colors of the walls result from iron minerals oxidizing in the atmosphere. The river continues to transport an average of 500,000 tons of sediment every day, grinding deeper into the plateau and revealing new chapters of planetary evolution. Ancient accounts describe a great dragon descending from the heavens to protect the coast from invaders. As it thrashed its tail, it carved deep valleys and scattered jade jewels into the sea. These jewels became the 1,969 limestone islands of Ha Long Bay. Geologically, these are karst formations shaped over 500 million years of tectonic shifts and sea level changes. Towering pillars of stone rise abruptly from emerald waters, creating a labyrinth that has shielded sailors and insurgents for centuries. Amidst this silent stone world, life thrives in floating villages. Generations of fishermen have lived on the water, their houses anchored to the very cliffs that define the horizon. The massive, unmoving peaks stand in opposition to the fluid, daily rhythms of the boats. Houseboats and aquaculture rafts remain anchored within the protected shadows of the peaks, where the ebb and flow of the tide dictates the rhythm of a life lived entirely on the water. Wind and water have hollowed out massive caverns beneath the islands, filled with stalactites that resemble frozen rain. The water carries the weight of history. While the islands stand as eternal guardians of the Gulf of Tonkin. Napoleon Bonaparte once promised his grand army they would return home under arches of victory. He envisioned a monument so massive it would anchor the spirit of the French Empire. Construction began in 1806, but the political tides of Europe shifted faster than the stonemasons could work. Napoleon died in exile before the project reached completion. It was not until 1840 that his remains finally passed beneath the completed vault, fulfilling his promise in death. The monument stands 50 meters, or 164 feet tall, at the center of the Place de l'Étoile, where 12 avenues radiate outward like a star. This geometric precision is a hallmark of Parisian urban planning. Beneath the arch, an eternal flame honors the unknown soldiers of past wars, burning every night without fail since 1923. Hidden within the massive masonry are secret tunnels and rooms once used for tactical purposes. The exterior is a gallery of military history, with the names of 660 generals and the major victories carved into the stone. A line etched under a name indicates the general died on the battlefield. If the Arc de Triomphe is a monument to human ego, our next stop is a monument to planetary power. Water plunges 60 meters or nearly 200 feet over a former sea cliff at Skogafoss. The spray is so heavy that sunny days often reveal a vivid double rainbow spanning the width of the river. Local folklore centers on a Viking settler named Thrasi Thorlaksson. He is said to have buried a chest filled with gold behind the wall of water. Years later, a boy supposedly found the chest, but could only grab a metal ring before the gold vanished back into the mist. This ring is now kept in the nearby Skogar Museum. The physical power of the falls is immense. The ground vibrates under the weight of the water, a force equivalent to a 20-story building collapsing every second. It represents the raw energy of the Icelandic landscape, where ice and volcanic history collide. Every drop carries the weight of ancient glaciers. There is a place where the mountains do not just collect snow, they bury the world beneath it. In the Japanese Alps, winter is a physical weight. Snow accumulates up to 2 meters, or nearly 7 feet in depth. Burying everything but the towering roofs of the Gasho-zukuri farmhouses. These structures are architectural marvels, built with steep, thatched roofs pitched at 60 degrees. The name Gasho-zukuri translates to constructed like hands in prayer, a shape designed to shed heavy snowfall that would otherwise crush a conventional building. No nails were used in their construction. Instead, the wooden beams are lashed together with rope and vines, allowing the houses to flex during earthquakes. The survival of these homes depends on a philosophy known as Yui, or the spirit of mutual labor. Every 30 or 40 years, the thatch must be replaced. This is not a task for a single family, but for the entire village. Over 100 people gather to strip the old reeds and lay the new ones in a single day of coordinated effort. This living heritage creates a bond between the people and their environment that is as sturdy as the beams of their homes. Inside, the smoke from the central hearth rises through the floorboards to the upper levels, naturally preserving the wood and thatch from insects and rot. During the winter illumination, when soft yellow light spills from the windows onto the pristine white snow, the village radiates a sense of ancient communal warmth. Deep within the stone forest of Angkor Thom, 54 towers rise like jagged peaks toward the sky. Each one is adorned with massive, enigmatic faces carved from sandstone. There are 216 of these faces in total, all bearing a subtle, haunting smile that follows observers from every angle. This is the Bayon Temple, a late 12th century masterpiece commissioned by King Jayavarman VII. The identity of the faces remains a subject of intense debate among historians. Some believe they represent the king himself, a divine guardian overseeing his empire with an all-seeing gaze. Others see the image of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, embodying a state of eternal enlightenment. Moss and lichen have claimed the grey stone, blurring the lines between the architecture and the jungle. Bas-reliefs along the outer walls depict everyday life, from chaotic battles to market scenes, yet the towering faces above remain detached, locked in a silent, stony meditation. Portuguese sailors once described this stretch of land as the gates of hell. Where the scorching sands of the Namib Desert collide with the freezing currents of the Atlantic, this is the Skeleton Coast. The coastline is a graveyard for ships, with rusted hulls like the Edward Bolen sitting hundreds of feet inland as the desert slowly reclaims the shore. Whale bones and seal skeletons litter the dunes, bleached white by a sun that rarely breaks through the mist. The Benguela current keeps the air cool and the water treacherous, creating a sensory experience of chilling winds and crashing waves amidst a sea of sand. It is a place of absolute isolation, where the only movement comes from jackals scavenging the shoreline or desert-adapted elephants crossing the riverbeds. This is the edge of the world, where the elements are in constant violent negotiation. Before he was the master of modern fantasy, a 19-year-old J.R.R. Tolkien explored these very cliffs in 1911. He saw a world so surreal it felt like a haven for fairies. This vertical kingdom would later emerge from his memory as Rivendell, a timeless sanctuary of the elves. The Lotabrunnen Valley is a profound rift in the earth, carved by retreating glaciers into a U-shaped abyss. Vertical limestone cliffs rise up to 300 meters or nearly 1,000 feet on either side, enclosing an emerald floor of lush meadows and alpine hamlets. This valley is the site of 72 waterfalls that streak the cliff faces like silver ribbons. Among them is the Staubach Falls, where the water atomizes into a fine mist before it ever reaches the ground. The geography here feels intentionally designed to evoke a sense of wonder. Small wooden barns and cows grazing with heavy bells create a soundtrack of rural tranquility that contrasts with the roar of the falls. Clouds often hang, caught between the peaks of the Eiger, Monch and Jungfrau, creating a ceiling of mist that isolates the valley from the rest of the world. Beyond the visual beauty, there is a physical weight to the air, rich with the scent of damp earth and pine. Every trail leads to a new perspective of water falling against stone, a relentless display of natural grace. Heaven is believed to possess 10,000 rooms, so an emperor on Earth dared to build 9,999 and a half. At the center of Beijing lies a sprawling complex of 980 buildings, a fortress of imperial power that served as the heart of China for 5 centuries. The Forbidden City was the residence of 24 emperors during the Ming and Qing dynasties. It is a masterpiece of geometric precision and symbolic architecture. The complex is said to contain 9,999 and a half rooms, falling just short of the 10,000 rooms believed to exist in heaven. Gold is the dominant color, found in the glazed tiles of the roofs, representing the supreme authority of the emperor. The Meridian Gate stands as a massive barrier between the common world and the celestial court. Throughout the courtyards, The dragon and the phoenix appear in countless carvings, symbolizing the emperor and empress. The number 9 is woven into every detail, from the studs on the massive red doors to the tiers of the marble terraces, as it represents longevity and the highest order of existence. Walking through the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the silence of the massive courtyards reflects the absolute isolation of the rulers who once lived here. The scale of the wooden structures, the largest in the world, was achieved without a single nail, using a complex system of interlocking joints that has survived earthquakes for over 600 years. Every stone and tile was placed to reinforce the idea that this was the center of the universe. Appears to hover above the vast valley of the Badlands in central Italy. Known as the Dying City, its survival is a race against time. The cliffs supporting its medieval stone houses are slowly disintegrating due to wind and rain, causing the edges of the town to tumble into the abyss. Access is limited to a single 300-meter or 980-foot footbridge. On misty mornings, the clouds obscure the valley floor. Leaving only the red tiled roofs and bell towers visible. This creates the illusion of an island floating in a white sea. It serves as a haunting metaphor for human transience. Every step on its cobblestones feels precious, knowing that the very ground beneath is destined to return to the earth. The town remains a labyrinth of stone arches and flower-filled alleys, preserved in a state of fragile, suspended animation. In the sub-Arctic wilderness of the Northwest Territories, the night sky becomes a theater for one of the most mesmerizing displays in the universe. Yellowknife sits directly beneath the auroral oval, making it the premier location to witness the northern lights. As the sun's solar winds collide with the Earth's magnetic field, the atmosphere ignites in rivers of neon green and violet light. This is the aurora borealis. To scientists, It is a collision of gaseous particles. To the indigenous Dini people, these are the dancing spirits of ancestors. Legend warns that if you whistle at the lights, they will descend and carry you away. The landscape below is equally stark. During the deep winter, the Great Slave Lake freezes into a massive plain of solid ice, stretching for hundreds of miles or kilometers. Silence here is absolute, broken only by the crack of ice or the distant howl of a wolf. Visitors stand on the frozen surface, looking upward as curtains of light ripple and fold across the stars. The temperature often drops to -40 degrees Celsius or -40 degrees Fahrenheit, yet the visual warmth of the celestial dance makes the cold feel secondary. The ruins of Hampi sprawl across a landscape that appears more like the surface of another planet. Tens of thousands of granite boulders, some the size of houses, are piled precariously across the terrain as if scattered by a giant. In the Hindu epic Ramayana, this region is known as Kishkinda, the kingdom of the monkeys. It was here that Lord Rama met the monkey god Hanuman. The natural chaos of the stones is juxtaposed against the breathtaking precision of the Vijayanagara Empire's architecture. Amidst the boulder fields rise massive stone temples and palaces, some carved with such intricate detail that the granite appears as soft as lace. The Vitala temple features stone pillars that produce musical notes when struck, an acoustic miracle from the 15th century. Nearby stands a stone chariot, so perfectly sculpted that its wheels were once able to rotate. The Tungabhadra River winds through the ruins, its banks lined with ancient stone steps and shrines that have stood for 600 years. The sheer contrast between the raw, unshaped boulders and the refined, hand-carved monuments creates a profound sense of wonder. Even in its ruined state, Hampi retains a regal dignity, proving that while empires fall, the marriage of art and nature can create something timeless. Carved into the heart of Norway's mountains, Geirangafjord is a monument to the staggering power of the last ice age. The fjord stretches 15 kilometers or 9 miles, with walls of dark rock rising steeply to heights of 1,700 meters or 5,500 feet. Waterfalls like the Seven Sisters, cascade directly into the deep blue water, their mist creating permanent rainbows in the cold air. The depth of the fjord is nearly 300 meters or 1,000 feet, mirrored by the snow-capped peaks above. The silence here is profound, allowing the sound of falling water to resonate for miles or kilometers. It feels like the breath of the planet itself. Small, abandoned farmsteads cling to the ledges, accessible only by ladders, showcasing the incredible resilience required to live in such a vertical, frozen kingdom. Stands at the mouth of one of the largest fjord systems on Earth, a capital city defined by its defiance of the Arctic elements. Brightly painted houses in shades of red, yellow, and blue contrast sharply against the grey granite and white snow. This color coding began as a way to identify the function of buildings. Hospitals were yellow, while stores were red. Today, they serve as a psychological anchor against the long polar nights. Massive icebergs drift slowly past the harbor, calves from ancient glaciers that have traveled for decades. It is a place where modern Nordic culture meets the ancestral traditions of the Inuit. Life in Nuuk is a constant negotiation with the wind and the cold. It represents the ultimate human outpost, a vibrant community thriving in one of the most inhospitable climates on the planet. The Alhambra stands as a testament to a time when geometry was considered a divine language. Located in Granada, this fortress complex houses the Nasrid palaces, where every square inch of plaster and tile is covered in complex arabesque patterns. These designs are not merely decorative, they are the result of advanced medieval mathematics transformed into stone lace. In the Court of the Lions, the sound of trickling water creates a soundtrack of constant movement. Here, water is treated as a physical building material. Still pools act as liquid mirrors, reflecting the intricate arches and the sky, blurring the boundary between the heavy earth and the ethereal heavens. The nearby Generalife Gardens provide a green contrast with their courtyards, where the air is thick with the scent of jasmine and the history of a lost kingdom. Most canyons are defined by arid red rock, but the Blyde River Canyon in Mpumalanga is a kingdom of emerald green. Stretching over 16 miles, or 26 kilometers, it is one of the largest verdant canyons on the planet. The landscape is dominated by the three rondavelles, three massive spirals of dolomite rock that resemble the traditional round huts of the local people. These formations rise over 700 meters or 2,300 feet above the surrounding terrain. Below, the Blyde River carves a serpentine path through the lush vegetation, supporting a vast ecosystem of hippos and crocodiles. The sheer cliffs are draped in thick forests and moss, proving that even in the heart of rugged terrain, life can flourish with overwhelming intensity. At the confluence of the Pho Chu and Mo Chu rivers, known as the father and mother streams, stands the Punakha Dzong. It is often described as the most beautiful fortress in Bhutan. Its massive white walls and red wooden trim seem to float where the waters meet, representing a perfect balance of masculine and feminine energies. During the spring months, the surrounding jacaranda trees erupt in a sea of lilac blossoms, carpeting the ground in soft purple. This is the spiritual heart of the nation, where monks in crimson robes move through vast courtyards in silent meditation. The architecture is a living expression of the Bhutanese philosophy. Every carved beam and hand-painted mural serves as a reminder that beauty and peace are the ultimate goals of human existence. Divinio Lictus. Pelourinho is the historic soul of Salvador, a neighborhood where the pulse of Africa beats loudly within the architecture of colonial Brazil. The steep cobblestone streets are lined with hundreds of 17th and 18th century buildings painted in vibrant shades of pink, ochre, and baby blue. While the name refers to a dark history, the modern atmosphere is a defiant celebration of resilience. The air is constantly filled with the thunderous rhythm of Olodum drummers and the scent of traditional spices frying in palm oil. People move through the squares carrying the heritage of their ancestors in their stride. It is a sensory explosion, where every corner reveals a mural or a spontaneous capoeira circle, turning the history of the past into a vivid, living masterpiece of cultural identity. Twice as deep as the Grand Canyon, this Andean abyss is the only place where humans must look up to see the sacred messengers of the gods. Reaching depths of over 10,000 feet, it is a vertical world carved into the Andes. It serves as the primary kingdom of the Andean condor, one of the largest flying birds on Earth. At the Cruz del Condor viewpoint, these massive creatures catch the morning thermals, soaring so close to the rim that observers can hear the wind through their feathers. For the local people, the condor is a sacred messenger between the earth and the heavens. The canyon walls are etched with ancient agricultural terraces that have been in use for over 1,000 years. Here, the landscape forces the eye upward, reminding everyone that in this high-altitude abyss, the sky is the only true ceiling. In the Rif Mountains of Morocco, a town appears as if submerged in a sapphire sea. This is Chefchaouen. Every alleyway, staircase, and doorway is saturated in shades of azure and cobalt. The origin of this tradition is a blend of spiritual symbolism and practical survival. In the 1930s, refugees painted the town blue to mirror the sky and serve as a constant reminder of the heavens. Local tradition also suggests the pigment acts as a natural deterrent for mosquitoes and keeps the stone interiors cool during the intense North African summers. Walking through the Medina feels like navigating a lucid dream, where the boundaries between the earth and the atmosphere have dissolved. The blue walls create a soft, reflected light that softens the harsh mountain sun, turning every street into a quiet, chromatic sanctuary. Perched on the highest peaks of Sintra, the Pena Palace stands as a flamboyant rebellion against architectural conformity. It was the 19th century vision of King Ferdinand II who transformed a ruined monastery into a stage for the Romantic movement. The palace is a chaotic, beautiful collision of neo-Gothic, neo-Manueline, and Islamic styles, painted in defiant shades of vivid yellow and terracotta red. It follows no singular logic, featuring stone monsters, guarding gateways and intricate tile work that feels pulled from a Mediterranean legend. Surrounded by a forest of exotic trees from every corner of the former Portuguese Empire, the palace feels like a physical manifestation of a fever dream. It remains a monument to the era of creative freedom, where the only rule for design was the limit of the royal imagination. "160 kilometers, or 100 miles off the coast of Caracas, lies an archipelago that feels like a glitch in the modern world. Los Roques is a marine sanctuary of over 300 islands and cays where the concept of industry does not exist. The sand is a blinding, pure white silica, contrasting with water so shallow and clear it appears as a pale, luminous blue. There are no high-rise hotels or paved roads here. Time is measured not by clocks, but by the slow, rhythmic movement of the tides and the migration of bonefish through the mangroves. It is a world reduced to its most basic, beautiful elements. To stand on a sandbar at low tide is to experience a level of isolation that is becoming increasingly extinct on a crowded planet. Hallstatt is a village so visually flawless that a full-scale replica was built in southern China to capture its essence. Yet the original, perched between the Dachstein Mountains and the dark waters of the Hallstatter Sea, possesses an atmosphere that cannot be manufactured. This is one of the oldest inhabited places in Europe, with a history rooted in a salt mine that has been in operation for over 7,000 years. The wealth from this white gold allowed for the construction of ornate wooden houses that seem to stack on top of one another against the steep mountainside. During the winter, when wood smoke curls from the chimneys and snow blankets the steep gables, the village achieves a level of aesthetic perfection that feels almost staged. It remains a global symbol of the idealized European village. The prehistoric roar of howler monkeys echoes through limestone temples that were once the heart of a Maya superpower now swallowed by an emerald canopy. These are the remnants of a civilization that once housed over 100,000 people. Climbing to the top of Temple 4 offers a view of a lost world, where the surrounding forest has swallowed an entire civilization. The sudden collapse of Tikal in the 9th century remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Was it drought, war, or environmental failure? The massive altars and towering stairs offer no answers, standing only as silent monuments to a kingdom that was once the center of the universe. Persepolis rises from the Marv-dashed plain as a ghost of the Achaemenid Empire. Built over 2,500 years ago by Darius the Great, it was the ceremonial heart of a kingdom that stretched from the Indus to the Nile. The Gate of All Nations stands tall, guarded by massive stone bulls that once witnessed representatives from every corner of the known world bringing tribute. Intricate reliefs along the Apadana stairway depict a precise and elegant court life, where even the folds of a robe were carved with anatomical accuracy. In 330 BC, Alexander the Great put this splendor to the torch. Yet even the charred remains of the monumental columns and the fallen statues speak of a wealth and scale that few civilizations have ever dared to replicate. The marble streets of Ephesus still carry the polished sheen of the thousands of sandals that walked them 2 millennia ago. This was the crown of the Roman East, a harbor city where trade and intellect collided. The Library of Celsus remains the most striking monument, its 2-story facade standing as a sanctuary for 12,000 scrolls. It was a place where knowledge was physically enshrined in the architecture. Nearby, the Great Theatre, capable of seating 25,000 spectators, echoes with the history of gladiatorial combat and philosophical debates. Walking past the Temple of Hadrian, The sheer scale of the ruins reveals a society that prioritized art, law, and civil engineering. It is a world where stone was treated as parchment, recording the peak of Greco-Roman urban life. Peterhof Palace represents the ultimate triumph of human engineering over the rugged Baltic coast. Peter the Great envisioned a residence that would surpass the gardens of Europe, and the result is a landscape dominated by the physics of water. The Grand Cascade features 64 fountains and over 200 gilded statues that glitter with an almost blinding intensity in the northern sun. Remarkable 18th century engineering allows these fountains to operate without the use of a single pump, relying entirely on natural gravity and siphons. Water flows from distant springs, tumbling through the golden terraces before reaching the sea. This garden is a defiant statement of power, showing how a Tsar could turn a marshy wilderness into a symphony of liquid gold and manicured greenery that defies the harsh Russian elements. The geography of the Isle of Skye feels as though it was torn from the pages of a dark, ancient poem. Jagged peaks, like the Old Man of Storr, pierce through the thick grey mist that rolls in from the North Atlantic. This is a landscape of melancholic beauty, where the wind bends the grass over hidden fairy pools and emerald valleys. Every loch and crag carries a Celtic name that echoes with the history of clans and mystical creatures. The light here is unpredictable, shifting from a bruised purple to a pale gold in seconds, illuminating the dramatic coastline. It is a place where nature feels sentient, and the ancient stones seem to hold a collective memory of a wilder, more magical world. Most rivers seek the ocean, But the Okavango River flows directly into the heart of the Kalahari Desert, creating the largest inland delta on the planet. This is a seasonal miracle where 15 trillion liters or 4 trillion gallons of water spread across the parched sands of Botswana. The result is a lush labyrinth of lagoons and channels covering over 15,000 square kilometers, or nearly 6,000 square miles. Life here follows the rhythm of the floods. Elephants, lions, and hippos navigate these waterways, moving between islands that shift and change with the rising tide. To move through this landscape, one must use a mokoro, a traditional dugout canoe that glides silently through the papyrus reeds. From this low vantage point, the complexity of the ecosystem becomes clear. Small reed frogs cling to the stalks, while massive crocodiles lie submerged in the shadows. It is a state of absolute harmony, where every drop of water is a lifeline. The Delta is a lesson in resilience, showing how life can flourish in the most unexpected places. As the sun sets over the mirrored surface of the lagoons, the sky and water become one, reflecting a planet that is still capable of producing profound, untouched beauty. The world never lacks beauty, only eyes that look beyond the surface. "30 destinations and 30 stories, yet only one planet to cherish." Wander while you are able. Discover that true wonders are found within your own heart. We will meet again on the next journey to decode our world. Opening our planet is filled with mysteries that challenge the imagination. Some places are so surreal, they make us question if they truly exist on Earth. They were shaped by millions of years of time pressure and erosion. Sometimes by human hands hidden away for centuries. These wonders lie on remote islands, in isolated valleys, and across geological realms few have ever reached. Today, our journey explores the unbelievable wonders of this planet. Opening our planet is filled with mysteries that challenge the imagination. Some At more than 12,000 feet above sea level, this vast salt flat stretches nearly 4,000 square miles across the Bolivian Altiplano. During the rainy season, a thin layer of water covers the surface, turning the entire landscape into a perfect mirror of the sky. Here, the boundary between earth and clouds almost disappears. The surface is so flat and precise that satellites use it to calibrate their altimeters. Beneath the salt crust lies a massive brine reservoir, rich in lithium, one of the largest deposits on Earth. Geology, light, and weather combine to create an illusion unlike anywhere else. Standing here, all sound fades away. Only the wind, the light, and the quiet feeling of being small before nature remain. The ocean seems to collapse into a deep blue abyss. From above, shifting shades of turquoise and navy form the image of a massive waterfall plunging into the sea. But it is not a waterfall. It is an illusion created by strong ocean currents pulling sand and silt off the island's edge. From the air, the movement of sediment tricks the eye into seeing depth where there is none. Mauritius is one of the few places on Earth where underwater topography creates such a perfect deception. Even when you know it is not real, it still feels impossible to believe. This place reminds us how easily light and perspective can bend our sense of reality. In the middle of the Sahara Desert in western Mauritania lies one of Earth's strangest landmarks, the Richat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, or the Blue Eye of Africa. From space, its concentric rings are so clear that astronauts use them as a visual marker while orbiting above Africa. The formation spans about 30 miles across. Near the small town of Ouadane, it is made of ancient sedimentary rock formed more than 500 million years ago. Over time, wind and erosion carved the layers into circular ridges, outer rings of hard rock and inner rings of softer quartzite. At its center lies a plain of debris nearly 2 miles wide. Scientists have debated its origin for decades. Some believe it was created by volcanic activity. Others think it resulted from a meteor impact. A few even connect it to the legend of Atlantis. Whatever the truth, the Eye of the Sahara remains a silent record of how time and erosion can shape beauty on a planetary scale. The surface of this lake glows with shades of pink that seem almost unreal. The color changes through the year from pale rose in the rainy season to deep magenta under the intense, dry season sun. Its hue comes from microscopic algae called Dunaliella salina. These organisms thrive in extremely salty water, producing red pigment to absorb sunlight. The lake's salinity is nearly 10 times that of the ocean, creating an environment where little else can survive. Along the shore, local workers harvest salt by hand, coating their skin with shea butter to protect it from irritation. This centuries-old craft keeps the bond between people and the land alive. In a place where almost nothing can live, color itself becomes a symbol of endurance. At dawn, light reveals a clay basin between towering red dunes. Scattered across the white ground stand the dark remains of trees that died nearly 900 years ago. When the river that once nourished this valley changed course, life vanished. The extreme dryness of the Namib Desert preserved the wood, turning each trunk into a shadow, frozen in time. The contrast here is stunning orange dunes glowing against white earth and a deep blue sky. For photographers, this is one of the most surreal scenes on the planet. Here, silence has weight. United States, steam drifts through the mountain air. Below it, a vast circle of color glows in the heart of Yellowstone. Grand Prismatic Spring, the largest hot spring in America, unfolds like a living rainbow. Its colors painted by microscopic life that thrives in boiling water. At its center, the deep blue reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Around it, bands of green, yellow, and red trace the edge of life itself. Each hue marks a species of bacteria surviving at the limit of what is possible. But Yellowstone is more than beauty. Beneath this calm landscape lies one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth. Its last eruption reshaped continents and skies. Even today, the ground rises and falls by inches each year, as if the Earth were breathing in its sleep. It is strange to think that what feels peaceful could one day change the planet again. And yet, this same land became the first national park in the world created in 1872 to protect not power, but life. Once the sound of wolves echoed across North America and Europe, then fear silenced them. By the early 1900s, most populations were hunted to extinction. But nature has a long memory. In 1995, gray wolves were brought back to Yellowstone after more than 70 years of absence. What followed was one of the most extraordinary ecological recoveries ever recorded. With the wolves' return, elk herds began to move again. Vegetation grew back along the rivers. Beavers, birds, and fish returned. Even the shape of the rivers changed. A single predator had rebalanced an entire ecosystem. In the western ranges of Colorado, new packs are being released once again. The program began in December 2023, aiming to restore a natural balance long lost. Even as debates continue among ranchers and hunters who share the land. Farther east, scientists are fighting to bring back the red wolf, once native to the southeastern United States. Their work in North Carolina is giving this critically endangered species a second chance at survival. Researchers are exploring the use of genetic editing and cloning to revive extinct wolf lineages, hoping to understand how lost species once shaped the planet's ecosystems. High in the Peruvian Andes, the Earth unfolds in waves of color. Reds, yellows, greens, and blues sweep across the ridges like brushstrokes from another world. This is Rainbow Mountain, known locally as Vinicunca. Its beauty comes from layers of mineral deposits exposed by the slow retreat of ancient glaciers. Iron paints the slopes red and ochre. Copper leaves traces of green and turquoise. Sulfur glows yellow beneath the sun. At more than 16,000 feet above sea level, the air is thin and the silence feels heavy. Only wind and footsteps break the stillness as travelers make their way up the winding path. Where most rivers run blue, this one carries every color of fire and light. Its surface glows red-yellow, green-blue and black, shifting like liquid glass under the sun. Locals call it Caño Cristalis, the river of 5 colors. For most of the year, it looks ordinary. But when the rainy season begins, a rare aquatic plant called Macarenia clavigera bursts to life beneath the water. It paints the riverbed in vivid red, mingling with the gold of the sand and the green of the moss. There are no minerals or strange lights here, only sunlight, pure water, and a living organism turning chemistry into art. Travelers come from across the world to see it, but nothing quite prepares you for the moment when you stand beside it and realize that this rainbow is made of life itself. In northern Tanzania lies Lake Natron. A shallow body of water, the color of rust and blood. Its surface shimmers in shades of red and pink, tinted by salt-loving microorganisms that thrive in water too caustic for most life. The lake's temperature can reach over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Its alkaline waters, rich in soda and minerals, can burn skin and eyes. And yet it is not lifeless. Flamingos nest along its edges, feeding on the very algae that give the water its color. But when birds or insects stray too far and fall in the lake, preserves them in mineral coats, turning fragile bodies into stone. Dishti. For thousands of years, people followed warm streams down this hillside, believing the waters could heal, renew, and even grant youth. The Greeks built the city of Hierapolis here, where poets, merchants, and kings came to bathe in the same pools that still flow today. Empires fell, earthquakes changed the land, but the terraces kept forming one fragile rim at a time, layered by the same mineral springs that drew the ancients. Pamukkale is not just a place of beauty. It is a living record of faith in the patience of nature and the human need to be remade by water. Across Egypt's western desert lies a landscape that looks dusted with snow. White sands rise in drifts and ridges over an orange base, forming towers, domes, and shapes sculpted by ancient wind and water. The white comes from minerals of calcium, quartz, and limestone, once part of the seabed that covered this region millions of years ago. Over time, erosion carved the soft rock into formations that glow like frost under the sun. Among them stands Crystal Mountain, a natural arch made entirely of quartz. Its surface shimmers like glass, a quiet reminder that even in the driest desert, the earth still knows how to shine. But Egypt's brilliance does not end with stone. Beneath this same sky, civilizations once tried to master eternity. The pharaohs did not build only for power, but for permanence. Tutankhamun, the boy king, died before reaching 20, yet his tomb, discovered more than 3,000 years later, was almost untouched, gold, ivory, and amulets still guarding his body. Scientists now know that his preservation was an act of chemistry and faith combined resin, salt, and linen, working together to hold a flesh against decay. It was both science and prayer performed by hands that believed they were preparing a soul for another world. The Egyptians did not see death as an end. To them, it was a journey. They imagined the soul sailing across the night sky, guided by gods with animal heads, Ra the sun, God reborn each morning, Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, and Anubis, who weighed the heart of the dead against a feather. If the heart was heavy with sin, it was devoured. If it was light, the spirit continued its voyage toward the eternal fields. What's remarkable is that this ancient obsession with immortality created some of the most enduring monuments on Earth. The pyramids may seem like relics, but they are also equations, precise alignments of stone, shadow, and starlight. Their builders measured eternity with math, and perhaps that is Egypt's greatest paradox. A civilization that feared death built more lasting things than any that came after it. The stone forest lies deep within the Yunnan Plateau. At first glance, the landscape feels like a city made of stone. Tall spires rise from the ground, narrow corridors cut through the rock, and every surface carries, recognized by UNESCO as a World Natural Heritage Site in 2007 and as a Global Geopark in 2004. Each ridge and pillar records a different chapter in the history of this land. Geologists often call it the first wonder under heaven, a conclusion based on decades of study, not just a poetic phrase. The story of the stone forest begins nearly 270 million years ago, when this land rested beneath a shallow sea. Over time, layers of limestone settled, hardened, and were later lifted by tectonic forces into the open air. Rain, wind, and the slow dissolving of stone shaped these towers and channels, carving the landscape drop by drop, season by season. The northern coast of Ireland hides a secret that looks too perfect to be natural. "40,000 columns of basalt rise from the Atlantic, their edges locked together, like a path built for giants." Legend says it was crafted by the mythical Finn McCool to cross the sea and fight his rival in Scotland. Science tells another story. When volcanic lava met cold ocean water, it cooled so quickly that the rock cracked into hexagons. With geometric precision. Today, waves crash and retreat, polishing each column smoother than any sculptor could. Madagascar. Once this was a seabed. Rain and acid slowly dissolved the stone-carving narrow canyons where sunlight rarely reaches the ground. Seen from above, it looks like a frozen forest of knives, yet life found a way to move through it. Lemurs, the island's most iconic primates, leap across the razor peaks with astonishing grace. Their padded hands and long tails help them balance on spires no wider than a finger. Each leap is a calculation between life and injury. Some species, like the Deccan sifaka, have adapted almost entirely to this stone labyrinth. They feed on leaves that grow in cracks, drink from rainwater pooled in the rock, and sleep in the safety of the upper ledges, where no predator can follow. For them, survival is not about escaping danger. It's about learning to dance with it. Water doesn't just erode stone, it decorates it. Waves of Lake General Carrera have been sculpting marble walls for nearly 6,000 years. Creating tunnels streaked with turquoise and silver. The color is not paint, but reflection. A mirror of the sky filtered through glacial water, so pure it bends light itself. When boats drift inside, the sound of water against stone echoes like distant music. These formations are still changing, grain by grain. Each ripple, each reflection is proof that art can happen without an artist. Along the coast of New Zealand's South Island, dozens of stone spheres rest quietly on the sand. They look man-made, but each one grew naturally beneath the seabed over millions of years. Minerals gathered around a single point, perhaps a shell, a leaf, or a bone layer by layer, until the rock sealed it inside. Erosion then revealed them smooth and round, scattered like giant pearls washed ashore. People come here at dawn to watch the tide retreat and light fill the hollows between them. In northern Arizona, storms turn desert into sculpture. When flash floods tore through the sandstone, the water carved sinuous corridors that twist and fold like flowing silk. Each curve holds the memory of a storm, written in layers of red and gold. Light drops from above in narrow beams, drifting with the dust, painting the canyon in motion. Photographers wait hours for that single instant when the light strikes perfectly. What they capture lasts a second, but it took millions of years to prepare the stage. In the heart of northern Greece, sandstone pillars rise like the fingers of the earth. Reaching for the sky. For centuries they stood untouched, until a small brotherhood of monks looked up and saw a sanctuary waiting to be built. They came here in the 14th century, fleeing the wars and chaos that swept across the plains. Without roads or stairs, they climbed the cliffs by hand and rope. Stone by stone, basket by basket, they built monasteries on summits where only clouds could rest. The name Meteora means suspended in air, and it fits. Even now, 6 of the original 24 monasteries remain active, floating between heaven and earth. Their bells echo through the valley, a rhythm of devotion that has never stopped. Visitors walk where monks once hauled supplies by pulley, feeling the same wind that shaped this faith in stone. Inside, frescoes glow in the dim light, and the scent of wax and incense lingers on the air. Each wall tells a story of endurance, not luxury. At sunset, the cliffs turn gold, and the monasteries seem to drift. For a moment, it is easy to believe that faith alone can hold a mountain in the sky. Half a continent away, in the mountains of China, another vision of devotion took shape. Clinging to the sheer face of Mount Heng, the Hanging Temple defies gravity with quiet grace. Built more than 1,500 years ago, it rests on wooden beams wedged into the cliff. A structure that seems to float between heaven and earth. Inside, statues of Buddha Laozi and Confucius share the same space. Three great teachings under one roof, balanced on air and faith. For centuries, this temple has withstood earthquakes and storms, its foundations trembling yet unbroken. Rising from the jungle, a single block of stone stands nearly 600 feet high. From a distance, it looks like a natural wonder. Up close, you see the work of a man who wanted to become a god. This is Sikaria, the Lion Rock Fortress. 1,500 years ago, King Kashyapa built his palace on this summit after seizing the throne from his father. Haunted by guilt and fear, he turned the rock into a fortress of isolation, surrounding himself with walls, moats, and mirror-like frescoes of celestial maidens. What remains is both beautiful and unsettling, a monument to paranoia carved into perfection. The king who built it was eventually defeated, but his citadel still watches over the forest, silent as a confession no one ever heard. Where the Drina River winds through western Serbia, a small wooden house stands alone on a rock in the current. It began as a place of play built by a group of friends who wanted somewhere to rest after swimming. They brought the first boards by boat, nailed them together, and never expected it to last. But the house refused to disappear. Storms tore it down again and again. Each time someone rebuilt it, for 50 years it has stood against the river's rage, fragile, absurd, and unshakable. In a world obsessed with power, this tiny house reminds us that endurance can be quiet. High in the cliffs of northern Italy, a church clings to stone like a prayer that refused to fall. Built into a sheer wall of Monte Baldo, the sanctuary of Madonna della Corona seems to hang in the air. Suspended between faith and gravity, pilgrims have been climbing here since the 16th century, following a narrow path carved into the mountain. Inside, the air is cool and still. Candles flicker against rock that has held the same silence for centuries. It is a place for those who come not to ask for miracles, but simply to remember that belief can anchor us even when the ground gives way. 23. In the Bavarian Alps, fantasy became stone. Neuschwanstein Castle rises above the forest like a vision from a dream. Turrets, towers, and clouds reflected in its white walls. It was never built for war or power. King Ludwig II designed it as a private retreat inspired by the operas of Wagner and the legends of medieval knights. He spent his fortune building a castle meant not to protect his kingdom, but to preserve his imagination. Ludwig died before it was finished. The castle opened to the public just weeks later. What he built in solitude became one of the most visited places on Earth. In southern Thailand, there is a village that floats. Koh Phangan rests entirely on wooden stilts, anchored in shallow turquoise water and ringed by limestone cliffs. It was founded over 200 years ago by Muslim fishermen who were not allowed to own land. So they built their home on the sea instead. Schools, mosques, markets, even a floating soccer field, all held up by tide and determination. When storms come, the whole village sways, but never breaks. Koh Phangan is not a place that conquers nature. It learns to move with it. In the Swiss Alps, engineering and landscape meet in perfect balance. The Landwasser Viaduct curves out of a mountainside and vanishes into a tunnel carved through solid rock. Trains glide across its 6 stone arches as if suspended in mid-air. Built in the early 20th century, the bridge was shaped without modern machines, a feat of precision guided by human hands and simple geometry. Even today, it feels more like a part of the valley than a structure imposed upon it. In the desert of Turkmenistan, a circle of fire burns without pause. Locals call it the door to hell, a pit that has glowed for more than 50 years. It began as an accident. In the early 1970s, a team of Soviet geologists struck a pocket of natural gas. The ground collapsed, forming a crater nearly 200 feet wide. To prevent the spread of toxic fumes, they set it alight, expecting it to burn out within days. But the fire never stopped. Wind feeds the flames, and the earth keeps exhaling fuel from below. At night, the desert glows red, like the breath of a sleeping giant. We watch the fire and realize this is what happens when curiosity outruns control. From the fire below, we lift our eyes to one of the driest places on Earth. Here in northern Chile, the Atacama Desert stretches for hundreds of miles without rain. Some valleys have not seen a single drop of water in centuries. It is a place where nothing grows, yet everything becomes clear. The air is so thin, the sky so pure, that starlight falls untouched by distortion. Astronomers call this the best window to the universe, a natural observatory carved by silence. At night, we see more stars than we can name. Light that left its source before humans ever walked the Earth now reaches our eyes. In this emptiness, we sense connection between dust time and life. As we drift in silence, the ceiling begins to glow. Thousands of glowworms hang from the stone, each no larger than a grain of rice. Together, they form constellations of living light, a galaxy built on hunger and instinct. They shine to lure insects, yet in doing so, they create something far greater than survival beauty. The deeper we go, the quieter it becomes. Only the sound of water remains echoing, like the pulse of the earth. For a moment, it feels as though we've fallen through the planet and come out beneath another sky. We've seen the fire of man, the stars of the universe. And now, the smallest lights of life. And somehow, this is where the wonder feels closest. We step into a forest where time moves slower than thought. Giants rise around us, their trunks wide as houses their crowns, hidden in mist. They have stood here for thousands of years, and some began growing before the fall of Rome. This is Sequoia National Park. Established in September 1990, the second national park in the United States, and the first created to protect a living organism. More than 8,000 sequoias grow in the giant forest, including the General Sherman tree, the largest living tree on Earth. What makes them endure is not their height, but their bond. Their roots reach only a few feet deep, spreading wide and intertwining with one another. Together, they form a network that keeps them standing through windfire and snow. It's strange to think that the tallest trees survive not by standing alone, but by holding on to each other. Israel, Jordan. The air here feels heavier, the light sharper. Before us lies the lowest point on the surface of the Earth, more than 1,400 feet below sea level. Its water is almost 10 times saltier than the ocean, so dense that nothing can sink and almost nothing can live. For centuries, travelers came here seeking healing, believing that the minerals could restore what time had taken. But the truth is more fragile. The Dead Sea is shrinking. Each year, the shoreline retreats as rivers are diverted and heat pulls the water skyward. In less than 50 years, it has lost a third of its surface. Still, it glows like liquid glass under the sun. Salt crystals bloom along its edges, forming patterns that shift with every wave. It is dying, yet endlessly remaking itself. We lean back, and the water holds us without effort. There is no need to swim, no need to fight. Here, gravity feels optional. So tell me, if the sea that cannot support life can still carry us so gently, what does that say about the world that made it? Maybe this is not an ending after all. Maybe this is the earth learning how to rest. And we have crossed deserts that glow like mirrors, climbed temples that cling to cliffs, and drifted through rivers painted by life itself. We have seen mountains of fire, forests of stone, and oceans that never sleep. Everywhere we went, one truth remained. The earth is not still. It moves, breathes, remembers. The colors, the storms, the silence. They are not there to be understood, only to be witnessed. Because every wonder we found was never just about the planet. It was about us, the way we see, the way we build, the way we hope to last a little longer than the wind. So when the journey ends, don't look for closure. Listen, the world is still speaking. And somewhere, another miracle is already beginning. From the dawn of time, we have stared at the sky and wondered how far we could rise. We watched the oceans crash against the shore and asked if we could ever command their force. What you are about to see is not just concrete or steel. It is the record of a species refusing to accept its limits. From ancient stone, carved with bare hands, to futuristic cities glowing in the night, these megaprojects reveal how imagination becomes reality. Each one carries the mark of human ambition. Each one stretches the boundary of what we believe we can build. Welcome to a journey through the tattoo of the greatest wonders of engineering on Earth. In the neon heart of Las Vegas, a structure has risen that looks less like a building and more like a celestial body that crashed into the desert. This is the Sphere. It is the largest spherical structure on Earth, but its size is secondary to its skin. The exterior is wrapped in 1.2 million LED pucks, creating the exosphere. It is a programmable living surface that can morph from a blinking human eye to the surface of a burning sun, visible from space. But the true revolution happens inside. There are no VR headsets here. Instead, you are enveloped by the highest resolution LED screen in the world, wrapping over and around the audience in 16K clarity. The sound does not just come from speakers, it comes from the floorboards and the chairs. Utilizing beamforming audio and haptic technology, you feel the roar of a rocket or the whisper of the wind in your bones. It is not just a cinema. It is a teleportation device, marking the end of the flat-screen era. From the digital lights of Vegas, we travel to Dubai to witness a structure that defies the rigid geometry of traditional engineering. This is the Museum of the Future. It stands as a torus, a gleaming silver ring with a void in the center, representing the unknown future. What makes it truly unreal is its shell. The facade is formed by 1,024 stainless steel composite panels, fused together so seamlessly that the building appears to be a single liquid shape. There are no sharp corners here, and remarkably, no internal columns support the structure. The script covering its surface is not random decoration. It is Arabic calligraphy serving as the windows, illuminating the interior with poems about human potential. China enter the mist-shrouded peaks of Zhangjiajie, the landscape that inspired the movie Avatar. Here, clinging to the side of a vertical quartz sandstone cliff, is the Beilong elevator. Known as the 100 Dragon Sky Lift, it holds the record as the world's tallest outdoor elevator. 3 double-decker glass cars carry visitors 326 meters straight up the cliff face in just 88 seconds. Building it was a perilous feat. Engineers had to drill tunnels and shafts into the quartz rock, installing sensors to monitor earthquakes. Riding it offers a terrifying yet breathtaking perspective, turning a grueling 3-hour mountain hike into a near-vertical flight lasting less than 2 minutes. Deep in the Truong Son Mountains of Vietnam, a shimmering ribbon of golden silk floats 1,400 meters above the sea. But it is not gravity that holds it there. It is the colossal, weathered hands of a mountain god. These giant stone palms appear as if they were carved from the cliffs centuries ago, cracked and covered in moss. Yet, this is a masterful illusion. Beneath the ancient facade lies a modern skeleton of steel mesh and fiberglass, engineered to withstand the harsh mountain winds. The Golden Bridge connects no villages, crosses no rivers, and carries no traffic. It exists for a single, surreal purpose: to allow you to take a walk through the clouds. Rising from the desert sands like a vertical city, the Burj Khalifa is what happens when humanity decides to touch the stars. Standing at 828 meters high, it is 3 times the height of the Eiffel Tower. Building this titan in a scorching desert required extreme measures. The heat was so intense that engineers could only pump concrete at night, mixing it with ice to prevent it from setting before it even reached the sky. But the real enemy here is not the heat, it is the wind. To survive, the tower uses an asymmetrical design to confuse the wind currents, preventing them from organizing into a force that could snap the structure in two. Inside, a strange paradox keeps the tower alive. To cool the building amidst temperatures reaching 50 degrees Celsius, the air conditioning system generates massive amounts of condensation. This water, totaling 15 million gallons every year, is collected and used to irrigate the park below. And if you were to stand at the very top during a sandstorm, you would feel the floor move beneath your feet. The tower is designed to sway up to 1.5 meters. It is not a flaw, it is a survival instinct. Instead of fighting the storm, the Burj Khalifa dances with the wind. China people call it the sleeping stone dragon on the mountaintops. But for the millions who have fallen here, it has a more harsh name, the longest cemetery on Earth. The Great Wall. A stone and brick monster stretching 21,196 kilometers, piercing barren deserts and perched on steep mountain ridges. To give you an idea, its length is enough to wrap around half the equator of this planet. But what makes it a fantastical superstructure lies not just in its size, but in a forgotten chemical secret. How could an ancient structure withstand 2,000 years of wind and war? The answer lies in the kitchen. Ancient Chinese engineers invented the first super-durable mortar in history by mixing quicklime with glutinous rice porridge. This organic and inorganic compound creates a bond so strong that sections of the wall still frustrate modern bulldozers today. And make no mistake, this was not just a silent wall. Before fiber optics and the internet, it was the fastest communications network in the ancient world. Using the dense smoke of dried wolf dung, an invasion warning signal could travel thousands of miles in just a few hours. While the Great Wall defends against armies, this next giant defends against nature itself. This is the Three Gorges Dam, the heaviest concrete object on the planet. Spanning 2.3 kilometers across, and rising 185 meters high, it serves as a massive fortress controlling the Yangtze River. To navigate this wall, ships must climb a colossal 5-stage water staircase or enter the world's largest shiplift, which elevates vessels weighing 3,000 tons in just 40 minutes. But the true scale of this project goes beyond flood control or electricity. It is cosmic. NASA has confirmed that the 39 billion tons of water held at an altitude of 175 meters actually shifted the moment of inertia of our planet. The dam is so colossal that it has slowed the rotation of the Earth by 0.06 microseconds. We did not just alter the flow of a river, we touched the very heartbeat of the world. If the Three Gorges Dam tames the river, this engineering marvel invites us to live upon the open ocean. This is the icon of the seas. To call it a ship feels like an understatement. It is a 20-story floating metropolis. In terms of sheer volume, it dwarfs history, standing 5 times larger than the Titanic. The vessel is divided into 7 distinct neighborhoods, hosting the largest water park ever built on the ocean, and a towering indoor waterfall that defies the motion of the waves. But beneath the luxury lies a complex infrastructure. Powered by liquefied natural gas, it operates with a closed-loop waste management system to repurpose energy. It is a testament to how far marine engineering has evolved, turning the open ocean into a mobile civilization. This is an artificial island so bold that it literally redrew the map of the world. To shape these massive palm fronds, engineers used a technique called rainbowing, spraying sand in high arcs to build solid land upon the water. Protecting this structure is a colossal breakwater where every rock was positioned by GPS to ensure the water circulates, preventing the lagoon from becoming stagnant. But the construction reveals a magnificent irony. Despite being surrounded by the vast Arabian desert, the builders had to ignore the endless dunes around them. Desert sand is too fine and round to stack. It simply slips away like water. Only the rough, jagged grains dredged from the bottom of the Persian Gulf could hold this island together. A nation built on sand had to turn to the sea to find the ground beneath its feet. Leaving the scorching sands of the Middle East, we arrive in the humid tropics of Singapore, where the line between nature and machine has completely disappeared. Welcome to Gardens by the Bay, a mechanical wonderland that feels more like the alien world of Avatar than Earth. Dominating the skyline are the super trees, giant vertical gardens that stand between 25 and 50 meters tall. But these giants don't just mimic nature. They complement it. They act as the lungs of the complex. Some are fitted with solar panels to capture energy from the sun, while others act as vents for giant underground greenhouses. Their vast canopies even extend to collect rainwater. By day, they open a path through the futuristic canopy. By night, they come to life in a dazzling symphony of light and sound. This is more than just a park. It's a blueprint for the urban jungle of the future, where nature and technology blend together. On the other side of the globe, the battle against water is not about generating power, but ensuring survival. There is an old saying that God created the world, but the Dutch created the Netherlands. With much of the land lying deep below sea level, this nation effectively exists in defiance of the ocean. To prevent the North Sea from reclaiming their homes, they engineered the Delta Works, a defense system so complex it is often hailed as the eighth wonder of the world. The crown jewel of this network is the Maeslantkering. These are not mere floodgates. They are colossal robotic arms, each the size of the Eiffel Tower, laid sideways. When a storm approaches, no human needs to intervene. The computer decides. The arms swing shut, sealing off the waterway and acting as the ultimate shield. This is engineering as an act of self-preservation, saving an entire country from being erased from the map. Driving across the Tarn Valley in southern France feels less like being on a road and more like taking flight. This is the Millau Viaduct, a structure so high that it often sits above the cloud line. Its dimensions are staggering. The tallest mast rises 343 meters into the air, making it taller than the Eiffel Tower. But despite its size, the design, by Norman Foster, is incredibly delicate, touching the valley floor in only 7 places. To build it, engineers used a daring launching technique, constructing the road deck on solid ground, and then slowly sliding it out into the void until the two sides met. The result is a thin, white blade that slices through the sky, creating the illusion of weightlessness. Deep beneath the snowy peaks of the Alps lies the longest and deepest rail tunnel in history. This is the Gotthard Base Tunnel, a needle piercing straight through the heart of Europe. Spanning 57 kilometers in length and buried up to 2.3 kilometers below the surface, this is an underworld of extremes. At this depth, the geothermal heat is scorching. The rock itself radiates temperatures of 46 degrees Celsius. Without massive cooling systems, it would have been impossible for workers to survive. But the heat was not the only danger. The sheer weight of the mountain above created pressure so immense that it changed the physics of the stone. The rock stopped acting like solid matter and began to behave like plastic, slowly squeezing inward to close the opening. Engineers had to install flexible steel frames capable of shifting and contracting to keep the walls from collapsing. At this depth, the mountain acts like a living organism trying to heal the wound caused by humans. The battle here was not just about drilling through rock. It was about holding back the crushing weight of the entire Alps. In Scotland, engineering meets elegance with the Falkirk wheel, the only rotating boat lift in the world. Designed to reconnect two canals separated by a significant vertical drop, it lifts vessels through the air with a graceful, silent spin. But the true marvel here is efficiency. The structure relies on the precise application of Archimedes' principle, ensuring that the opposing arms always maintain perfect balance, regardless of the weight of the boats. Because of this equilibrium, turning this massive steel machine requires a shockingly small amount of power. To complete a half-turn, it consumes only the same amount of energy needed to boil 8 electric kettles of water. In Central America, humanity carved a massive scar across the land to unite two oceans. This is the Panama Canal. It does not simply dig a trench from sea to sea. Instead, it utilizes a system of freshwater locks acting as a water elevator. These locks lift Titanic vessels 26 meters into the air to cross Gatun Lake before lowering them back down on the other side. To navigate these tight squeezes, electric locomotives known as mules run alongside the ships, keeping them perfectly centered to prevent disaster. But the soil here holds a tragic history. The French originally attempted this feat, but abandoned it, defeated not by engineering, but by biology. 22,000 workers perished from yellow fever and malaria. When the Americans arrived, their first order of business was not moving earth, but exterminating mosquitoes. Before the steam shovels could roar, a silent war had to be won. This remains the first project in history where medicine was just as critical as concrete. When the sluice gates of the Shaolangdi Dam fly open, it looks less like a release of water and more like the awakening of a mud dragon. The Yellow River carries the highest sediment concentration of any major waterway on Earth. Without this dam, the silt would build up, raising the riverbed and causing catastrophic floods. To prevent this, the dam performs a violent annual purge. It is often described as a living organism that breathes, inhaling the clear water and forcefully exhaling millions of tons of trapped silt. As the torrent erupts, it creates a churning explosion of crimson and gold sludge, a spectacular, artificial flood designed not to destroy, but to scour the riverbed clean. Leaving the raw power of the Yellow River, we travel back in time to the original master of mathematics. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the eternal benchmark of human engineering. It is composed of 2,300,000 stone blocks, yet it is far more than a mountain of rock. It is an astronomical instrument, aligned with terrifying precision to the constellation Orion and pointing to true north more accurately than many modern compasses. How they achieved this remains a haunting question. Without engines, pulleys, or even the wheel, workers moved stones weighing between 2 and 15 tons. Whether they used water channels or wet sand ramps, the method is lost to history. But what we see today is merely a skeleton. We are looking at the rough inner core. Originally, The pyramid was encased in polished white Tura limestone, topped with a capstone of solid gold. Today, it wears the yellow color of dust, but 4,000 years ago, it stood as a blinding white diamond. It was a lighthouse of civilization, shining across the sea of sand. In the Cambodian jungle lies the largest religious monument ever built. This is Angkor Wat. But while it looks like a mountain of stone, it is effectively a city floating on water. The entire complex sits on a foundation of soft, sandy soil and swamp. By all laws of physics, the heavy stone towers should have sunk into the mud centuries ago. They survived for 900 years because of the massive moat surrounding them. This body of water is not just a defensive barrier or a spiritual symbol, it is a brilliant engineering device designed to stabilize the groundwater. The foundation relies on wet sand to hold its shape. If the moat dries out, the sand shrinks and crumbles, and the temple falls. History tells us Angkor fell due to politics, but engineering suggests it died when the water system failed. In construction, water is usually the enemy. Here, it is the backbone. Angkor Wat is a colossal hydraulic machine disguised as a temple. Lebanon. In the ruins of Baalbek, we find stones that simply defy logic. These are the famous trilithon blocks, massive monoliths forming the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter. Some weigh between 800 and 1,000 tons. To put that in perspective, a single stone here weighs as much as 3 statues of liberty combined. While the Romans were master engineers, the technology required to quarry, lift and transport blocks of this scale remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. Standing next to them, a human looks less like a builder and more like an ant. Crossing the Jiaozhou Bay Bridge feels less like a commute and more like running a marathon on the open sea. Stretching for an exhausting 42 kilometers, it appears as an endless ribbon of concrete, vanishing into the horizon. Supporting this massive span is a forest of more than 5,000 pillars, engineered to survive the harsh realities of the bay. These foundations are not just built for weight. They are designed to withstand the collision of a 300,000-ton ship and endure the crushing pressure of frozen sea ice during the bitter winters. Standing in the heart of Spain is a monument that seems to defy the laws of decay. This is the Aqueduct of Segovia, a 2,000-year-old masterpiece held together by nothing but the magic of gravity. It consists of over 20,000 rough-hewn granite blocks stacked atop one another. Remarkably, there is not a single drop of mortar or cement binding them. The entire structure stands solely on perfect balance and colossal weight. Its existence is so improbable that locals call it the Devil's Bridge. Legend whispers of a girl who sold her soul to the devil to have it built in a single night. But looking closely at the joints, where even today a sheet of paper cannot fit between the stones, the truth is revealed. The perfection here did not come from dark magic. It came from the pure, unyielding power of Roman mathematics. Imagine a skyscraper, but instead of standing tall, it lays horizontally across the sky. This is Raffles City, Chongqing, famous for a structure known as the Crystal. It is a massive sky bridge stretching 300 meters, connecting the summits of 4 separate towers. Weighing 12,000 tons, lifting it was a monumental challenge. Engineers assembled the segments on the ground and used heavy-duty hydraulic jacks to hoist them 250 meters straight up. Walking inside, visitors step onto a glass-bottom observation deck, suspending them directly over the convergence of the Yangtze and Jialing rivers. In New York City, space is the ultimate luxury. So engineers did the impossible. They created land out of thin air. This is Hudson Yards. It is not built on solid ground, but floats above a bustling rail yard. 30 active train tracks run directly beneath the foundations. To make this possible, builders drilled deep caissons into the narrow gaps between the rails and laid a colossal concrete platform on top. Rising from this artificial floor is the vessel, a honeycomb structure of 154 interconnecting staircases. But the true genius is hidden. Beneath the gardens, systems cool the tree roots and manage rainwater. Most impressively, you will never see a garbage truck here. Trash is sucked away through pneumatic tubes at 70 kilometers per hour. Hudson Yards is not just a district, it is a living body with a digestive system powered by compressed air. In Valencia, Spain, we find architecture that looks less like a building and more like the bleached skeleton of a giant alien creature. This is the city of arts and sciences. Designed by Santiago Calatrava, it is a masterpiece of biomimetic design. The structures mimic the shapes of a massive human eye or the ribcage of a whale, seemingly floating upon vast pools of blue water. The stark white concrete reflects perfectly on the surface, creating a seamless boundary between reality and reflection. Like a jagged fragment of glass piercing the heart of London, the Shard redefined the city skyline. Clad in 11,000 panes of glass, It is designed to reflect the shifting clouds, allowing the massive tower to dissolve into the atmosphere. But its construction was a high-stakes gamble. Engineers used a radical top-down technique. They built the concrete core, rising upwards, while simultaneously digging the basement downwards. It is like trying to construct the second floor of a house while you are still excavating the foundation. A dangerous, synchronized dance performed in the center of a bustling capital. In Hangzhou, the corporate office has been reinvented as an infinite loop. This is the O Tower, the research hub for tech giant Oppo. Breaking away from the traditional vertical block, its design flows in a continuous, seamless circle. The sloping roof is not merely aesthetic, it is calculated to guide sunlight deep into the central open-air courtyard. It creates a space where the rigid boundaries between a high-tech workspace and a natural park completely dissolve. Leaving the seamless loops of modern technology, we arrive in India to witness an absolute explosion of color and faith. This is the Meenakshi Amman Temple. It is defined by its 14 colossal gateway towers, known as Gopurams. But look closer. These towers are not just painted, they are alive with detail. Over 33,000 intricate sculptures cover every inch of the surface, depicting a kaleidoscope of gods, demons, and beasts. To keep this vibrancy alive, a massive restoration project takes place every 12 years, ensuring that the stone never loses its vivid soul. In the vast plains of Inner Mongolia, we find the supreme giant of the fossil fuel era. This is the Tuaketuo power station. the largest coal-fired power plant on Earth. With a staggering capacity of over 6,700 megawatts, this facility alone generates enough electricity to power millions of homes. It serves as the critical lifeline for the Chinese capital, Beijing, sending a relentless surge of energy through high-voltage lines across hundreds of kilometers. While the world races toward green energy, this complex remains a reminder of the raw industrial muscle required to fuel a superpower. Its massive cooling towers and relentless turbines form a machine so vast it creates its own weather system of steam and heat. From the raw industrial power of the mainland, we move to the busiest waterfront on Earth, where humans have effectively handed over the keys. This is the Yangshan Deepwater Port in Shanghai, built entirely on reclaimed islands pushed out into the sea. Here, robots rule. It is the world's largest automated container terminal. You will not see truck drivers or crane operators in the yard. Instead, fleets of automated guided vehicles move in a silent, synchronized ballet, guided by invisible algorithms. Giant cranes snatch containers and stack them like colossal Lego bricks with terrifying precision. Humans are present, but only as distant observers, watching from control rooms kilometers away as artificial intelligence powers the heartbeat of global trade. Rising from the Black Canyon of the Colorado River, the Hoover Dam is more than a power plant. It is the ultimate symbol of American will, constructed during the darkest days of the Great Depression. The engineering challenge here was not just weight, but heat. Concrete generates heat as it cures. The dam is so incredibly thick that if left to cool naturally, the chemical reaction would have taken 125 years to finish. To solve this, engineers built a massive refrigeration plant, pumping ice-cold water through a network of pipes buried deep within the walls to speed up the process. But the true cost was human. The environment was lethal, with rocks constantly raining down from the canyon walls. To survive, workers took their soft cloth caps and dipped them in hard tar, letting them dry into a rigid shell. This improvisation was the birth of the modern hard hat. "96 men died to raise this wall of water. Their legacy is not just the electricity powering the West, but the safety gear that protects millions of construction workers around the world today." Buried 100 meters beneath the border of France and Switzerland lies the most complex machine ever built. This is the Large Hadron Collider. Its purpose is terrifyingly ambitious. It was designed to recreate the conditions of the Big Bang. Inside a 27-kilometer circular tunnel, beams of protons are accelerated to near light speed and smashed together with violent force. To control these beams, the massive superconducting magnets must be chilled to -271 degrees Celsius. This creates an environment colder than the deepest void of outer space, right here on Earth. By sifting through the debris of these collisions, scientists hunt for the fundamental building blocks of reality, including the elusive Higgs boson, often called the God particle. It is a time machine made of metal and wire, allowing us to peer back to the fractions of a second after the universe began.